Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working in E-Commerce. I'm your host, Egan Heath, the owner of Caravan Digital. We're a digital marketing agency. We help e-commerce store owners sell more and get more traffic through paid search, paid social, and email automation. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ben Knegendorf. He's an expert in drop shipping, and he's from Dropship Breakthrough. Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to be on a podcast with another Wisconsinite. There's not many of us in the DTC e-commerce game.
That's right. Yeah, I'm over in Madison. It looks like you're in Baldwin, kind of by the Twin Cities. Very exciting. You know, I think a lot of people hearing this will wonder, Ben, is drop shipping dead? Like, what's going on? Tell us a little bit about the state of drop shipping and kind of how what you do is different.
I think oftentimes people hear dropshipping and they immediately dismiss it. And with the rise of, air quote gurus everywhere, somebody standing next to their rented Lambo telling them to turn and burn a store and sell the hot product on TikTok, I guess I don't blame them. But dropshipping's really been around since the internet has been around. It's simply a method of fulfillment. And so a great example of who did dropshipping well is Wayfair. They started as many, many different niche e-commerce stores, ended up bringing them all together into Wayfair, certainly started warehousing at that point. But I would imagine they still dropship to this day. So they're a great example of really what we try to teach at Dropship Breakthrough, which is high-ticket dropshipping. We want you to sell from local suppliers, not selling from AliExpress or any Chinese vendor, selling from brands you've definitely heard of. You and I have heard of all of these brands, especially if you're in the market for these products. You've heard of all of these brands. And again, it's local to you, right? They're in America. If I'm running a store in America, my products are being drop shipped from America. And so it's simply a method of fulfillment that allows you to not have much overhead and get started really only having to learn the marketing side of things rather than also having to, come up with a great product idea and engineer that and solve the many, many, many problems that come with your own product.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned, e-commerce changed your life. Tell us a bit about your story and how you got into this.
Yeah, I could go on forever, so please tell me to be quiet if you want me to. But really, it was working at a Walmart distribution center where I really kind of woke up. So I've known for a long time that I was different. I was told I wasn't normal as a kid. I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this heard that, and they wanted you to fit in this box. And I knew for a long time I wasn't. It led to rebellion, right? It led to me experimenting with a lot of things that maybe I should or should not have experimented with, hanging out with, again, people I may or may not have should have hung out with, and really just, really pushing against what I was told, be normal or whatever, right? And so, I find myself in my late 20s working at a Walmart distribution center. I've been there for 8-9 years, and I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do, right? My dad was a warehouse worker. My mom was a CNA. At the time, I was working at a warehouse. My wife at the time was a CNA. And so I was doing what I thought I should do, and I made it to first shift, which was the holy grail in that building. If you finally get there, you've had enough tenure. And I got there, and I remember looking around, and just everyone was dead inside. I remember it vividly the day I was there. I was like, oh, this is it. I'm 29. I've made it. Maybe I could become a coach someday because we're a team at Walmart, right? Give me a W for anyone listening who's been there. And then, I realized something had to change. And so that's really where my story took a turn of just like, I have to get out of here. What does that even look like? And I really didn't have any good examples at that time. And so I just kind of dove into podcasts to try to find something.
I love that story, Ben. I've worked night shift over many jobs over the course of my life. And I always think of the Bob Dylan line of 20 years of school and then they put you on the day shift. So I can certainly relate to that side of things. Paint the picture for us a bit of kind of how did you get into selling products? Like even just give us a little more if you can on how do you discover these high ticket items? How do you then, kind of make that connection and start selling online?
Yeah, so for me, it was simply, I started selling on eBay. I had some friends that would go to garage sales or clearance aisles and start flipping stuff, right? And so I did the same, made a few dollars, but I realized quickly it wasn't scalable. And I was listening to as much podcasts as I could back then. I'm a podcast junkie. I've got a couple of my own. I've had a few in the past that I don't have anymore as well. I enjoy listening to them. I enjoy being behind this microphone. And so I just dove in deep, and I stumbled across the term dropshipping, which got me to explore that a little bit. And in 2014, 2015, there really wasn't the gurus around telling you to use AliExpress back then. And I stumbled on the term high ticket dropshipping. And when I heard the Wayfair reference, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense to me. Like, rather than go find a product that's hot, interrupt grandma showing off her dinner or what your friends did this weekend at the bar and try to get them to buy your product, create demand. Go sell products that people are already looking for and just capture that demand. It made a lot of sense to me to build a real business, provide real value, and that's kind of where I got started. And as far as like actually finding these products, the one thing that I recommend most people to do is just open your Apple Notes app or whatever you have on you if you have an Android, or pen and paper if you're old school, and just look around everything you do that day and start notating things that are over $1,000. And I think you'll be shocked at just how much is in our lives that is over that price point, that can really be turned into a business. I'm just looking around. I've got I'm not even sure, a split system, I believe is what these are called, above my head here, blowing cold air. Like that's $3,000, right? That's a split system that, you could have your local electrician put in, or you might be looking for one for your tiny home or for your pole shed, and you're likely going to be looking online like the rest of us do when we shop.
So it's sort of like you're becoming the retailer, and like, how can I find a wholesaler? Is that sort of the right idea?
Yeah. So rather than a wholesaler, you're actually going directly to these brands. These brands are great at making products, and they're most of the time not great at marketing. And so they need outlets, whether that's a retail store or whether that's an online retail store, which is what I'm explaining to you.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to ask too about the podcasting. I've been a huge podcast fan myself. Tell us a bit about your setup. I know it's neither here nor there, but your voice sounds really good on that. Kind of what have you landed on for your main gear?
Before the gear, I'll give you a little pretext, I guess. Growing up, my dad would tell me he was in college, and one of his big regrets was he didn't finish this technical college where he went to be a DJ. And so he would tell us of the show DDKP. My dad's name is Don, last name Knegendorf, right? And Dan Peterson was the other guy, and they would have DDKP, and he would always talk in this baritone voice. And I always thought it was so cool, right? Your dad's the coolest person you know growing up. And he told me his regrets there. And then we would just be driving in the car, and just like a DJ would do on the radio, a song would start playing. And before the guy starts singing, my dad would be like, let's go back to 1976, this band. And he would like do this whole intro, and he would nail it every time right before the guy's singing. And I just thought that was so cool. And so I would practice that. I also kind of wanted to be a meteorologist as a kid. And so I would, and I would use my middle name, meteorologist Ben James here with, whatever. And just like, I always practiced the voice stuff. And so, that probably helped a little bit, but just getting a great mic really solves a lot of problems. So this is, like an $80 mic on Amazon. I think it's a ATR 2020, I believe is what it's called. And so if you can simply get a nice mic and get really nice up and close to it, you're going to sound amazing as compared to, just throwing in your AirPods, or heck, a lot of people nowadays on Zoom are just using their MacBook, which is okay. But you can sound a whole lot better just getting close to a nice mic.
Yeah, the audio makes a difference. I'm glad I asked about that. That's fun. So with the products then, are you selling them on a Shopify site? Are you selling them on Amazon? Kind of, what's the sales channel there?
Yeah, so again, you're building a real business here. I would not recommend selling high-ticket products on Amazon. I do have another business where I sell pet supplements. Amazon is a big channel for us. But every day I wake up to an email that says, refund initiated for order number blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't matter the reason. Amazon's going to take care of their customer. And I'm going to heavy emphasis on their customer. Now, if you were selling $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 items, and Amazon just said willy-nilly, we're going to refund somebody, that could really be a nightmare, right? And so we recommend building your own website, building a destination on the internet for you to sell these products. So whether you're selling standing desk or 3D printers, you're going to be able to provide much more value on your website and information on your website that Amazon simply can't do. They don't have somebody there to answer questions on, what plastic you need for your 3D printer to, what PLA or it's been a while since I sold 3D printers, ABS or whatever the different plastics are. You should become the destination. Kind of think of REI. Like if you want to go buy nice products for outdoors, you're going to go to REI, and there's going to be people there who actually can answer all of your questions, and they're going to have a nicely curated set of products because they know what's good and what's not good and what they allow in their store. This is exactly what you would be doing in your business.
You become the expert. You become the sales consultant. I think that's helpful to think of REI or another, just sort of what's the brick and mortar equivalent here. We can picture that. Okay, let's make our website sort of, the nexus for this. This is where people get their questions answered. And ultimately, when they're ready, this is where they buy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're in Wisconsin. Do you have an Ace Hardware near you by any chance in Madison?
Sure, yeah.
You can't walk in there without being immediately stopped and, hey, how can I help you? And they'll walk you around. And they'll, I'm kind of a dummy when it comes to house stuff, and they'll help me find the right screw or the right nut or whatever I need for my project. And that's what you need to be online, right? If you think of every whatever business you're running, if you think of the people coming to your website, we often look at like 100 people came and we're trying to hit this industry average of 2 people bought. But what about those other 98 people who raised their hand and said, I'm interested in your products and I have a problem that you're not solving? Like, go solve those problems, and instantly you'll have a better conversion rate. You'll have a brand because people will know you're the place to go get this information. And so if you can become the house of information, if you will, like if you can become the source, you're going to build a brand. You're going to be the one people reference when they say your website said this or this website said that, and they're going to reference you because you've put out the information. So I recommend, I don't know, I love SEO. This takes you down a whole SEO path of how you could do this, but I recommend, again, leaning into your passions here. I know I differ than my business partner on this, but if you lean into your passions, it's very easy to create this content and be able to answer those questions and build relationships in your industry because you're thinking about this stuff every day and you're using the products already.
That's a very interesting tip I haven't heard, is maybe depending on what your skills are and what your interests are, you may have different channels that are best for you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, certainly with these high ticket products, you're going to be capturing demand on Google, right? AdWords is going to be your best friend, not any of the Performance Max or anything like that. You're going to have to actually build out a priority funnel, high, medium, low priority, and funnel your keywords appropriately. But beyond that, relationship, my buddy George says relationships beat algorithms, and he's right. Like, you're going to have to build relationships in this industry. You're going to have to create content that other people want to link to. You're going to have to build a real business here, right? No business out there is a quick cash grab, and this is also the same thing.
Yeah. So are you doing extensive blogging? Are you doing content creation to answer questions in a niche like this?
Yeah. So the beauty of this model, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. I just did it on a Patreon yesterday, so I'll try to do my best here. Imagine I'm selling infrared saunas, right? One of the brands is Sunray Saunas. That is a brand out there that you could sell. So rather than go create blogs on infrared saunas, you already kind of have a built-in skyscraper, cluster content, whatever you want to call it, by having a brand, right? So Sunray Saunas, if you go to Google and search that, Google's asking for a collection page in return. So Shopify's already built for this, right? E-commerce is built for this. Rather than, like, when you sell your own products, you kind of have to make these collections. When you sell a brand, the brand is the collection, right? So if I can build out a landing page for Sunray Saunas on a /collections /Sunray Saunas, right? Then that already inherently is going to give Google what it's asking for. And then the cluster content for a brand, if you go to Google and search Sunray Saunas and you scroll all the way to the bottom, it's going to say Sunray Saunas and then one of their products, right? The Baldwin or the Tiburon or whatever they call their saunas, right? And so now you already have this cluster built just by selling a brand. And so SEO ends up becoming very easy on that. And when you're your own brand, let's say, I sell pet supplements, right? So glucosamine for dogs. I can't create a best glucosamine for dogs page and then list only my products. That Google's not going to give me any love for that, and the internet is going to shred me for doing that. However, if I sell 10 brands of infrared saunas, I 100% can go put up a best infrared saunas of 2022 page that's going to rank for that term quite well, especially if I get some backlinks, and I can just sprinkle in the best products from the brands I carry. And it's very authentic. It's very truthful. I'm providing a lot of value to my customers. So high ticket dropshipping on Shopify inherently has like SEO kind of built into it if you're just willing to follow, Google's rules and give Google what it wants to. And then beyond that, yes, of course, you're creating content on, what is an infrared sauna versus traditional saunas. And again, since these brands and these products are already being searched, there's already keywords out there such as, infrared versus traditional sauna is a great one, but inside the brand themselves, you might have product A versus product B. People are wondering, hey, I know I want this brand, but what's the difference between model A and model B? And they're going to Google and searching that Sunray Model A versus Model B. So if you can simply create that content, now you've created bottom of the funnel content comparing two products you already sell, building, authority in Google's eyes, but also giving your customer exactly what they need when they're ready to purchase.
I'm curious, on the pay-per-click side, is there a challenge to differentiate? I'm guessing you're not the only vendor or what have you selling the product. If we're not competing on price, kind of how are you getting that piece where you get the click from the Google result page, and then maybe talk to us a little bit of what do people see on page after they click?
A lot of times when people think through this, they're like, well, why wouldn't everyone buy from the manufacturer? But look around your room right now, Egan. Did you buy everything in that room from the manufacturer, or did you buy some of this, your headphones at Best Buy or Walmart or Target or wherever you prefer to shop, REI, any of those things, right? Like we do tend to buy from other places. And so simply putting your ad up there, just being one of the results in Google Shopping, you're going to get clicks. But to your point, you're obviously not going to want to use the same image that 8 other resellers are using in order to, try to improve your click-through rate. Text ads are a different story, right? This is going to be, your keywords that you're choosing. Same with shopping ads, actually. If you're running a priority funnel and not letting Google choose those keywords for you, you can isolate the keywords you want to show up for and don't want to show up for, or pay more for and don't want to pay more for.
That's by specifying it in your feed and doing a standard shopping campaign?
Yeah, so not in your feed. It's actually do a standard shopping campaign, and within that, you have the choice to choose priority. High priority, medium priority, and low priority. Everything has to go to high until you make it a negative keyword, where then the only place it can go to is medium, where you have the exact same campaign, just medium priority. And if you negative again, you can send it to low. So in high, you might only bid 10 cents, 25 cents. But if you've exact matched Sunray Saunas, that has to go to medium, where you might bid $1. And if you've exact matched Sunray Saunas Baldwin 3-person sauna, the very long tail, that'll have to go to low, where you might be bidding $3 or $4, but you're getting that super bottom of the funnel click where you're happy to pay more. So you're kind of already isolating yourself away from your competition by doing that. And then again, you have to create somewhat of a better offer, right? Minimum advertised price is something most brands adhere to here in the United States. And so yes, you're going to look exactly the same in those shopping ads. And if you earn that click, they're going to land on a Shopify page where you better be providing more value than just copy and pasting from the manufacturer's website. You better be going into detail. I like to tell people, maybe order one of those units and actually take some of your own photos, create content around that, show why it's different. And then all of that supporting content we talked about is great remarketing material if somebody's not ready to buy the instant they landed on the product page.
And just in that example of infrared sauna, you're not going to have one at your own home, I assume. How do you go about that, of getting unique photos and writing unique product description?
Yeah, so the first part, that is a little more difficult in the beginning, right? Certainly there's hacks in every part of this, right? So you could simply pull it into Canva and mirror the image, right? So your infrared sauna is facing the different way, and 8 of those in the shopping box are facing the other way. That might help it improve your click-through rate. But you touched on a great point. What you can do is talk directly to the customer. So we find often a lot of our students like to just immediately go and say, the product name does blank, the product name from product vendor, you know what I mean? And they're just very machine-like, and even the brands themselves don't necessarily write the best product descriptions. So if you can take the time and think about the person who is landing on this page and where they're at in their journey and speak directly to them, you're just going to envelop them a little bit more. So you're going to have to learn a bit of copywriting. And I actually think that is one of the best parts of this business model, is like, you have no overhead. You don't really have a whole lot of startup fees other than your time. And in the process, you're going to have to learn marketing, and hopefully you're going to make sales in the process and cash flow while you learn marketing. You're going to have to learn Google Ads, some SEO, some conversion rate optimization, copywriting. You're going to have to learn how to code a little bit. And so all along the way, hopefully you're making sales and cash flowing while having zero overhead and very low startup costs, while you get to learn marketing, rather than spending $100,000 and going to some school and hoping you get a job and hoping Biden, pays you back for some of the student loans. Anyway, this is why I love this business model. You get to learn and basically get paid to learn.
I don't mean to get lost in the weeds on the PPC piece we can move on to, but Jack on my team is the one who runs these. So if I'm out of date and I'm old school and I don't know what I'm talking about, maybe that we can just cut this. But my understanding on standard shopping was the keywords come from the feed itself, and you don't get to specify keywords like you do with a search campaign. Am I mistaken on that?
You're right and wrong. So your feed likely is pulling from the product page, right? So Google's not only taking your feed, but they're also like looking at the product page, and they're pretty good at understanding what you're sending over, right? Especially if you like named it the product name, that's your H1 on the page. Google's going to understand, hey, that's what this page is about. You should hopefully do a good job with your H2s and your other H tags to help them understand what the page is about, and you're supporting keywords, blah, 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 blah. So that information's coming into Google, and if you only run one campaign, it doesn't matter what priority you set it at, it's going to show for everything, right? And so if you only set up one and you set it up as high priority, it's going to flood in all those keywords Google thinks you should show up for. And that's where you get to kind of cherry pick phrase match, exact match, broad match, whatever, and negative keyword them from high priority and say, I don't ever want them to show here again. And if you clone that campaign and you set one as medium priority, the only keywords that can ever get to medium are the ones you said can't be in high, right? So by negative them in high, they get pushed to medium. And then you can do the same thing from medium to low and kind of isolate keywords that you want to pay more for. So you can't not show up for anything, right? Unless you negative them throughout all 3 campaigns. But you can say, all right, I'll let everything fall into high first where I bid very, very low. And then things that are important to me, I'll push to the next one where I have higher bids. And then if it's really important to me, I'll push it down to the third tier where I have the highest bids.
I see, yeah. And potentially you could use your cost per click bidding to say these high ones, maybe I don't even want to be showing up for those. I'm not going to get impression share. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, and I mean, you can literally bid 5, 10, 25 cents on your high priority campaign. You'll be shocked. You will convert on some of the most random, like people will convert on infrared sauna, and you'll wonder how that possibly happened when that's, the highest of top of the funnel keyword ever. But I recommend staying there and just showing up for those. And then of course, layering in your audiences. So you should be building audiences in Google Analytics and then layering them here so that if somebody did search something that would have shown up in low and they come back to Google and they search something that would be in high, you're willing to pay more because you layered that audience. You're saying they've been to my site before. I know they're more valuable to me if they come again. That's a simple report in Google Analytics. Anybody who's been to your site more than once is way more valuable to you than somebody who's only been once, right? And so you can kind of layer that audience and make sure you're still showing up for some of those generic terms that if it was only searched one time, they've never been to your site, you might not want to pay very much. But if they've been to your site before and they're familiar with you might want to pay more to get that person to come back.
Pretty interesting. And so that the high priority, if you've got 3 tiers then in shopping, 3 different campaigns with different priorities, the highest priority is actually like the broadest in terms of keyword match. Then you're using negative keywords to get really specific, and you might bid more on that lowest level. It's quote unquote lowest priority, but it actually might be highest keyword intent. Am I understanding that right?
Correct. Yeah, it's a little confusing, right? Highest priority, lowest value to you, medium, and then low priority is actually the highest valuable keywords to you.
Okay. I'm glad we talked about that. Thank you for going through that.
And look, even if you're running Performance Max, clone your feed, add a -1 to these and run Performance Max and then run this alongside of it so you can actually see what keywords you're getting. Performance Max is great and it works well if you do it well, but wouldn't you like to know kind of what keywords are working too, right? So that you can use them elsewhere. And so you can clone this feed and run them right against each other and show up twice and own your keywords at the same time.
Are you running some Performance Max yourself? Do you have kind of a high level take on it?
I've tested them on some low ticket items where they work, and I've tested them on some high ticket items where they just don't. I'm hearing some rumblings that maybe it does work on some things, but for the most part, look, if you know the story of how this came about and how, a Chinese Go computer beat another Chinese Go computer, and then Google bought the AI, it's only going to get better, right? Like technology is a one-way street. Moore's law says we're going to get there twice as fast as we did last time. Like if you fold a piece of paper enough times, you'll get to the sun, right? And so we're going to get there quickly. I don't think when I started this journey in 2015 that much of that stuff worked. Like enhanced bidding kind of worked. If you go into Google Analytics and you build the smart list audience, that'll be the greatest audience you've ever built. That works. And I do think they're getting there. I think Performance Max is another step forward. Smart Shopping was another step. Performance Max is another step on top of that. But I do wonder whether they're focused too much on making it easier for Joe Bag of Donuts rather than actually making it better. Because you actually have to call your rep on the back end and say, please remove my brand name from this. Otherwise, they'll show you great results, but you don't know whether it's coming on your brand name or whether it's coming on new search terms that you want to show up for.
Oh, that's a tip. So you can run Performance Max, tell Google to pull out branded search terms?
Yeah, you have to get on the horn with your rep and ask them to pull out your brand name, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. This is awesome. We weren't even planning to talk pay-per-click, but I can tell you're a wealth of information on this. This is awesome.
I'm a nerd for this stuff, man. It took me till I was 30 to actually figure out that this stuff's fun, and man, I've been nonstop ever since.
Well, your broader point is very fascinating as well. So we've had some people on the show who are also, Google Shopping experts, been doing this for more than a decade. And some are quite skeptical on the automation, and certainly Smart Shopping and now Performance Max is kind of like this. But I think what you're saying sounds good, or it makes a lot of sense in terms of we've seen this before. We've seen AI beat us at checkers, then chess, then Go. It's only a matter of time where the AI is going to be better than even a skilled practitioner at this. And so pay attention, and as soon as that changes, be ready to switch your campaign. So your point's well taken.
Yeah, and it is working in some instances, right? I think enhanced bidding on standard campaigns is working. I think, again, smart list. If all you take from this entire podcast is go into Google Analytics, into your audience, hopefully you still have the old Google Analytics that works, and build that smart list. That list is absolute fire. It's awesome. So
it sounds like you're doing a fair amount of demand capture. We're doing stuff where we can do SEO or pay-per-click. Anything else you can tell us about kind of selecting the product? I love that infrared sauna example. My wife loves to use those, and I've used them a few times, and they're great. That's just such a good one. Can you walk us through a little bit? Let's say that's the product. how are you finding the manufacturer? How are you contacting them? Just tell us a little more about this process because it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's easier than most people want to believe in their head, right? So if you simply go to Google and type in infrared sauna, then click the shopping tab on the left-hand side, they're going to give you brands, right? Some of them will clearly be retailers, of which you can go to their site and click their brand drop down, right? And they're likely drop shipping all of those brands, or simply go through and pull out the brands. Now, what do you do with this actual list of brands? You contact them. So you go to their website, you go to contact us. I would recommend giving them a call. You will find some brands that simply have a become a dealer option on their website. I don't want to say they're bad. They're not bad. They're just easier to get. So if you want to like cut your teeth on this, call those guys first because they're going to say yes. And so at least then you can get through your jitters. Some of the bigger brands are going to be much harder. They're very much more selective in who they allow to sell their products. And so when you call them, you're going to have to let them know, hey, I've already built it. You should build a website, whether it's live or not live. Like show them, here's what I'm trying to do. I would put a few of their products on there and say, here's how I'm going to represent your brand. Here's my marketing plan. Here's how I'm trying to go about this. I'm trying to do, and in the beginning for me, I didn't know what I was doing, right? And so I was just telling them, hey, this is my first business. I really want to give this a shot. I want to do this for my fan. And I just told them what was going on in my life and that I really wanted an opportunity. And they were more than gracious enough to give me an opportunity. And, I took it and ran with it from there. So I think if you just simply call them, and we just did an episode very similar to this too. There's some common objections. Number one, they're going to try to immediately remove people who just want to flip this stuff on Amazon and eBay. They get calls upon calls every day. So let them know, hey, I'm not looking to flip this stuff. I built a real website. I'm trying to be a real business. And the second thing they're trying to get rid of is just fly-by-night sellers that really just kind of want to, you don't want to build a real business. And so if you can express, here's my plan, here's the website I actually built, like actually go build something first and show them what you want to do. I think you're going to have much better luck that way. But you're not going to get 100% yeses. You're definitely not going to get 100% no's. And so, but I will say, in third grade, I remember being in my laundry room, pacing back and forth, thinking about calling Sarah Peavy and asking her to be my girlfriend. And I will say, every time I call a supplier, even though I'm very seasoned, it's that same feeling of like, oh, what are they going to say? It's intense. And so, I would say that is one place where a lot of people get tripped up. It's a big hurdle. But once you're past it, right, you're only going to run into more and more hurdles. Businesses just constantly jumping over hurdles and solving problems.
In many cases, you're going to run ads for their product, and they're only going to have to incur cost when you sell something for them. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, it's not even cost, right? They're just simply shipping it out on your behalf, slapping your label on there, and charging your credit card. So you're doing them a favor, right? And I think too often you have this like authoritarian complex growing up, right? We're taught, obey the teacher and obey your boss. And so you kind of put these suppliers on that too of like, I don't want to offend them. Like, what do they need you? Like they absolutely need you. And you're doing them a favor by marketing for them and building, driving traffic for them. And so remember that when you call that, like you're doing them a favor. They're not doing you a favor.
You're a commission salesperson for them. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Can you talk to us a little bit about margins? What kind of profit margins can you look for? Can you expect? And also even, how does that relate to kind of that value you create when you talk about, we need to create a real company, a real brand? Just talk to us a little bit about margins and high ticket drop shipping.
Yeah, they're all over the board. So I've sold everything from as low as 5% selling pitching machines. I would not recommend that, but I'm a baseball junkie. I had to give it a go. To I've seen from some of our students and some of my consulting clients up into the 50, 60, 70% range, which is rare, to be fair. I would say the average or the median is roughly 25 or 30%, which still ends up being a lot, right? So I have this equation I like to talk about where it's like, let's say you wanted to make $30,000 revenue this month and you're selling a $30 product. You have to sell 1,000 of those products in order to do $30,000 in revenue. If you sell a $3,000 product, you only have to sell 10 of those in order to do that revenue, right? So you're going to need less employees. You're going to have less damages and returns. You're going to have less overhead on 30 orders or 10 orders rather than 1,000. And you're going to roughly make the same at the end of the day with far less headaches, right? So if you just do the math, a $3,000 order, and I don't normally do public math, but we'll do some here. We'll say that's $750, you're probably, you're going to pay a little bit in fees to Shopify for processing the payment for you. You're going to have to pay shipping, which could range anywhere from $25 to $250 or $500, depending on if you're shipping freight or things like that. And so there's still plenty of room there on every product for you to go acquire the customer and take some home for yourself with far less sales, right? Just you're not going to need a team to be able to do this, right? You can. Many of our students are doing 7 figures and there's no one on their team, right? They might have a VA or two helping them with a few things, but like you can do this on your own because the big sales add up quickly.
And it's, forgive me if I'm missing this too, that a 7-figure dropship store like that could be doing, what in profit? It sounds like a couple $100,000 potentially.
Yeah, I would say most businesses at the end of the day, whether they're making their books look pretty for the IRS or not, they're roughly doing about 15% at the end of the day back into their pocket, right? And so just do the math. If you're doing $1 million business, probably $150,000 back in your pocket. I have seen that higher. I have seen that lower. Again, it kind of varies by industry, but I would say 15% is pretty standard at net take home.
It's a darn good living, though, working for yourself, working from home.
Yeah, 100%.
That's great. Ben, I'm going to have you back on. We got to talk SEO. We got to talk CRO. We got to talk other channels. I can tell you're just a wealth of knowledge. But let's, is there anything else you want to share for this episode?
Yeah, I would just say, the only other point I normally get across on a podcast like this is, the beauty that you can start for $500 or less, right? You don't need to build a franchise where you have to go pay a franchise fee and get the space for it, right? You're not launching your own brand where you got to research samples, big money order, launch and hope. You can start for less than $500, right? And so go get a domain, go get a Shopify, start with a free theme if you want to, or go get a paid theme. You're going to need Google Workspace so that you have your name at yourdomain.com. You're going to need a Grasshopper account, which is just an 800 number. So again, you look professional. You might do a little bit of branding on Fiverr, and then you're going to run Google ads, right? And so Google likely will give you, here's $500 if you spend $500, or here's $150 if you spend $150. The biggest thing you're going to incur here is your time, right? You're going to have to put some time into this. And if you have more money than time, you can certainly pay some people to do some of this for you, but I'd encourage you to learn. And so that's my favorite part of this. And then, the end of it is, again, if you're thinking of dropshipping as selling these little widgets from China, these businesses aren't sellable. So go to Quiet Light Brokerage, go to Empire Flippers, and go look at what's for sale in dropshipping, and you'll see the multiples are healthy because you're building a real business. And so I've been fortunate enough to be part of some 7-figure exits. I've consulted a brand who's currently pending on Quiet Light Brokerage for nearly $5 million. There's real opportunity here to make a good living and also have a great exit and move on to other things in your life. Love it.
Ben, thank you so much for coming on, sharing what's working in e-commerce. Where can people find you?
Yeah, if you want to check out what we do, look, if you're listening to this, you're a podcast junkie, I would likely just send you to our podcast. We literally give away the entire business model. Start from episode 1. You'll enjoy every bit of it. It's dropshippodcast.com, or just check out Dropship Podcast on whatever player you prefer listening on.
All right. Thanks so much, Ben.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.